Brooklyn, 1946. A 13-year-old boy walked into a corner store and saw something that would change his life. A magazine. Physical Culture. On the cover, a man with a body carved from marble. The boy had 20 cents. He bought the magazine, started building weights out of concrete and broomsticks. 15 years later, he would wrestle a real elephant on camera, win 7 gladiator films, train the first Mr. Olympia, then walk away to become an opera singer. His name was Mark Forrest, born Lorenzo Degni. But here's what makes his story unbelievable. The Italians told this Italian-American that his real Italian name was too Italian, so they gave him a fake American name for Italian films. From measurements that made the first Mr. Olympia say his breath was taken away, to becoming the only American peplum star who could speak Italian, he did the impossible. Today, you'll see the moments where a Brooklyn boy became a god on screen, then disappeared into opera houses. The transformation no one saw coming. Number 1, the giant from Brooklyn, 1946. Sunset Park, Brooklyn. A skinny 13-year-old named Lou Degni discovered a Physical Culture magazine. Everything changed. His family was third-generation Italian-American, working class, Depression-era survivors. Lou bought that magazine. Then another started training with homemade concrete weights, broomstick bars. By age 16, he was built. 1952. Lou walked into the AAU Mr. America at 19 years old, placed 27th. Not impressive? He was competing against veterans who'd trained for decades. 1953. Mr. New York City, tall class winner. 1954. Mr. Venice Beach, champion, height around 6 feet, weight 200 pounds. But here's the number that made people stop. Waist, 29 inches. Most men at 6 feet carry a 34 to 36-inch waist. Lou had a 29. That's a teenager's waist on a giant's body. 1958. A young bodybuilder named Larry Scott walked into a gym. He would become the first Mr. Olympia, and he saw Lou training. Here's what Larry Scott wrote. His words. His physique was simply sensational. His body simply took your breath away. When he walked in the gym, it almost got quiet, breath taken away. From a man who would become Mr. Olympia, Lou made the room go quiet. This wasn't a gym champion. This was a Brooklyn kid who built his body with concrete and broomsticks, who turned professionals silent. The measurements were real. The impact was remembered. Number 2, the name too Italian for Italy. 1958, Hollywood. Steve Reeves starred in Hercules, shot in Italy, low budget. It became a phenomenon, grossed $20 million worldwide. Italian producers realized something. American bodybuilders could print money. They started recruiting Ed Fury, Gordon Mitchell, Reg Park, and Lou Degni. Lou flew to Italy. Producers loved his look, his measurements. They wanted to sign him immediately. But there was a problem. His name, Lorenzo Louis. Degni, Italian. Third-generation Italian-American from Brooklyn, spoke Italian, lived Italian culture. The Italian producers looked at him and said something absurd. Too Italian. They were making Italian films, casting Italian heroes, and they told an Italian-American that his real Italian name was too Italian for international audiences. They renamed him Mark Forrest. As American as it gets. An Italian-American playing Italian heroes in Italian films under a fake American name. The irony was perfect. Lou Degni became Mark Forrest, and under that fake name, he would become the most prolific Italian strongman hero in cinema history. More films than Reeves, more than anyone. The name change was real. The absurdity was documented. Mark Forrest was born. Number 3, Mae West's Muscle Palace. Before Italy. Before Mark Forrest existed, Lou Degni had another job, one that would put him on stage with future legends. 1954, Las Vegas. Mae West had an idea, a stage show with a twist. The male dancers wouldn't be dancers. They'd be bodybuilders, muscles on display, entertainment that was part Broadway, part bodybuilding exhibition. She recruited the best, Lou Degni, Ed Fury, Gordon Mitchell, and Mickey Hargitay, night after night, performing choreographed routines, flexing, posing. Las Vegas in the 1950s. Everyone who mattered saw that show. One night in 1956, Jayne Mansfield sat in the audience. She watched Mickey Hargitay. After the show, she introduced herself. Within a year, They were married, one of Hollywood's most famous couples, because Mae West put bodybuilders on stage, and Lou Degni was right there, building connections, learning showmanship, understanding how muscles translated to entertainment. For 3 years, Lou was one of Mae West's muscle men. Before Chippendales, before male strippers, Mae West was decades ahead. The show ended in 1957, and when Italian producers came looking, Lou had the body, the stage presence, the experience. Mae West's muscle palace was training for a career nobody predicted. The connections were real. Mark Forrest's foundation was built. Number 4. 7 times a giant. 1959. Lou Degni, now Mark Forrest, arrived in Italy, signed a 3-picture contract, but they had no idea what they were getting. Most American bodybuilders in Italy couldn't speak Italian. Steve Reeves needed translators. Reg Park struggled with dialogue. Mark Forrest walked onto Italian sets and spoke Italian fluently. 3rd-generation Brooklyn Italian. Italian directors were stunned. That advantage made him irreplaceable. 1960. Goliath and the Dragon. His first lead role, playing Maciste. The film was a hit. Between 1960 and 1965, Mark Forrest made 12 peplum films, but 7 cast him as Maciste 7 times, more than any other actor in cinema history. Maciste appeared in dozens of Italian films from 1914 to 1965. Mark Forrest played him more than anyone else, ever. Why? Because he spoke Italian, because he looked the part, because he could act, not just flex. The Revenge of Maciste. Maciste in King Solomon's Mines. Maciste, the strongest man in the world. 7 films. 1 character. A record that still stands. By 1963, Mark Forrest was Italy's most bankable strongman star. More films than Reeves, more consistency than Park. The only American who could do it all. The filmography is documented. Mark Forrest was the king of Maciste. Number 5, The Elephant That Wasn't Actin', 1960. Goliath and the Dragon set, Rome. Mark Forrest was about to film a scene that would become legendary. A fight scene with an elephant, not a puppet. A real elephant. Live on set. 3 tons of animal. The scene called for Goliath to wrestle the elephant, defeat it with bare hands. They were going to film it practically. Viewers who watched the film couldn't believe it. The elephant looked drugged, moving slowly, swaying. Film historians suggested it was likely sedated, but sedated or not, it was still an elephant. Mark Forrest approached it. The cameras rolled. He grabbed it, wrapped his arms around the trunk, made it look like a fight between equals. The scene is watchable today, on YouTube. In the film, you can see it. The real elephant, the real man, the real danger. Viewers still comment, "That elephant looks miserable." This would never be allowed today. They're right, it wouldn't. But in 1960, Rome, Italian producers pointed a camera at a bodybuilder and an elephant and said, "Go, no stunt doubles." Mark Forrest did it. The footage exists. The elephant was real. Number 6, the first Mr. Olympia's teacher, 1958. Gold's Gym, Venice Beach. Before Italy, Lou Degni was training, and Larry Scott walked through the door, 20 years old, trying to build a competitive physique. He saw Lou train and approached him, asked for help. Lou agreed. Over the following months, Lou taught Larry something revolutionary, a training philosophy called pivot points. Muscle development wasn't just about lifting heavy. It was about placing tension at specific angles. For lower lats, Lou showed Larry how to pivot at the bottom of a pull-down, changing the angle by inches, creating tension most bodybuilders couldn't feel. Larry Scott absorbed everything. His physique exploded. By 1962, Larry Scott won Mr. America, 1963, Mr. Universe. And in 1965, he became the first Mr. Olympia. And decades later, Larry Scott, credited Lou Degni, wrote about those training sessions, that pivot points philosophy. His body simply took your breath away. When he walked in the gym, it almost got quiet. The first Mr. Olympia, saying his breath was taken away by Lou Degni. Mark Forrest went to Italy, made 12 films, then disappeared from bodybuilding. But his influence? It won the first Mr. Olympia. The teaching was real. The impact was documented. The legacy was permanent. Number 7, from gladiator to tenor, 1965. Mark Forrest walked off an Italian film set for the last time. 12 films in 5 years. and he was done. Because Mark Forrest had another dream: opera. Since childhood, Lou had loved music, singing, classical compositions, but films had taken over. Now, the peplum genre was dying. Mark Forrest was free. He enrolled in vocal training, serious study, bel canto, the Italian method, prioritizing beauty of tone and breath control. His teacher? Giovanni Milo, former tenor at the Metropolitan Opera, father of Aprile Milo, one of the most celebrated sopranos of the 1980s. This was elite training. Mark Forrest studied for years, the same dedication he'd brought to bodybuilding. By the late 1960s, Mark Forrest was performing tenor leads in European opera houses, regional theaters, real opera, real performances. A gladiator was singing Puccini. A man who'd wrestled elephants was performing Verdi. The transformation was complete. Then came voice coaching. Mark Forrest returned to Hollywood, not as an actor, as a teacher, using his bel canto training, his understanding of breath control and vocal health. He worked with actors, musicians, anyone who needed to improve their voice. The man who'd played Maciste 7 times was teaching proper breathing. The bodybuilder from Brooklyn was coaching actors. Mark Forrest never advertised, never promoted, never returned to the spotlight. He coached quietly, lived privately, disappeared into music. The opera career was verified. The teaching was documented. The reinvention was complete. Number 8, 89 Years of Iron. January 7th, 2022. Arleta, California. Mark Forrest died at home, peacefully, one day after his 89th birthday. For a man who'd built his body with concrete weights at 13, who'd wrestled elephants at 27, who'd done everything the hard way. 89 years is remarkable. Most peplum stars didn't make it that far. Steve Reeves died at 74, Reg Park at 79. The physical demands take a toll, but Mark Forrest lived to 89, still training into his 80s. The man who'd started lifting concrete weights never stopped, not until the end. His final years were quiet, private. He distanced himself from his film career decades earlier. When fans reached out wanting interviews, he was polite, but uninterested. One film historian remembered, he was very pleasant, but it was obvious he wasn't interested in revisiting that part of his life. He got far more joy from opera and voice coaching than acting. Mark Forrest had moved on. The 12 films were a chapter. They'd funded his music training, allowed him to pursue what he actually loved. He died without major obituaries, no New York Times tribute, no Hollywood Reporter retrospective. Just a brief notice from Italian wire services, the quiet departure of a man who'd chosen privacy. But the films remain. 12 muscle epics, 7 Maciste appearances, the most prolific Italian strongman hero in cinema history. And somewhere in Hollywood, voice students who worked with Marky Forrest have no idea they were taught by Maciste, by the man who wrestled an elephant, by the Brooklyn kid who became Italy's strongest man, then walked away to sing. He lived 89 years, died the day after his birthday, spent half a century hidden in plain sight. The longevity was real. The privacy was chosen. The legacy was earned. You've seen the measurements that made the first Mr. Olympia silent, the 29-inch waist, the body that took breath away. You've seen the name change that made no sense. An Italian-American renamed to sound less Italian for Italian films. You've seen Mae West's Muscle Palace, where Mickey Hargitay met Jayne Mansfield, where Lou Degni learned to perform. You've seen 7 Maciste films, more than any actor. The only American who spoke fluent Italian. You've seen The Elephant, real, 3 tons, wrestled on camera. You've seen Larry Scott's Teacher, the pivot points that built the first Mr. Olympia. You've seen the Gladiator become a tenor, studying with Metropolitan Opera trainers. And you've seen 89 years, born in Depression-era Brooklyn, died in modern California. Mark Forrest didn't leave medical records, didn't give interviews, didn't preserve his story. He walked away from fame, chose privacy, disappeared into music, but the films exist. 7 times Maciste, the most prolific Italian strongman hero in cinema history. Which moment shocked you the most? The elephant wrestling that shouldn't have been allowed? The 29-inch waist that made Mr. Olympia silent? The The 89 years that defied the odds? If you enjoyed this story, hit the like button. It means the world to us. And let us know in the comments. Which other forgotten old Hollywood muscle men should we cover next? We're listening. Thanks for watching. More impossible transformations coming soon.